Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news. Lots to discuss this morning, not more so than the story that Donny van der Beek could be heading towards the exit door at Manchester United, furious at his lack of first team opportunities and confused at why he's being ignored. We'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about Nikola MILENKOVIC, Italian reports saying that Manchester United have a lead on this race. Also stories about Ousmane Dembele from Barcelona, as well as a few other things as well. But let's get into this Donny van der Beek story, because ultimately I don't actually put much weight on where the story's coming from. If you're not from the UK, it's coming from the Daily Star, which is, you know, if you talk about reliability, it's probably about as reliable as Zayn. You know, it's just, you know, it's not a great outlet for football news. However, I do think that there is a story around Donny van der Beek, and maybe we haven't spoken it for a while. And I mean, this story says that Donny van der Beek wants summit talks with Ed Woodward about a lack of game time and that he's furious. And look, I agree. It's a morning show. It's a news show. We have to cover the news. That's what we do on the morning show on the United Stand. And, you know, it's always very important to say where it's coming from, because sometimes it might be coming from somewhere good and sometimes it's not. We've got a story from Fabrizio Romano this morning about a centre-back that Manchester United might be interested in. However, I think even if you did ignore the story and where it's coming from, the reality is that there is a stark issue with Donny van der Beek. And look, even people this morning are saying there is an issue there. I saw somebody this morning who actually I follow on Twitter, who I know has connections in and around the club, and they're saying that there's a general feeling that he's just not good enough for the Premier League. And that is floating around, because that's a good story to go out from Manchester United, that Donny van der Beek just isn't good enough. If they put that out there, it protects the club, it protects the manager, and, you know, it puts out that story that he's not good enough. So, I mean, to be honest with you, exit talks for Donny van der Beek, I think we all want to believe that's not going to happen, but I've thought for quite a long time now that I can't really predict what's going to happen with Donny van der Beek in the summer, because I never would have predicted this was going to happen this season. I think his lack of game time has been nothing short of shocking, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. It wouldn't surprise me if Donny van der Beek had or does want meetings with Ed Woodward and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, because who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? Would you be happy with that as a first season? You're Manchester United's biggest summer signing, and you're sat on the bench watching Fred and McTominay play midfield. I mean, that is an ultimately a very hard pill to swallow, isn't it? So there's definitely an issue there. Whether this story is as accurate as some might think it is, I wouldn't think it is. I don't think he's demanding a transfer. I think he's probably demanding to know what he's doing wrong and what it is. Now, the funny thing is, hi Mark, just a quick check-in to say I loved your tweet after the West Ham game, acknowledging for a second where we are in the league considering the summer window. Come on United, says Russell Burton. Thank you very much. So yeah, look, with Donny van der Beek, let me just address this head on. There are rumours that Ollie doesn't rate him, that didn't want him, that he doesn't think he's playing that well. And Gabriel Noel says if Donny leaves and Ollie goes into next season with crap midfield, especially if Pogba leaves, he's going to get sacked by Christmas. I think that's true as well. But can I just say this? For all the rumours that Donny van der Beek isn't good enough and he's not Premier League quality, and for all the rumours that, you know, Manchester United might be better off without him, I come at it from this angle. How can you sit here and say that Manchester United are not good enough? And I think we all accept that. The playing style is not defined. Where we are in the league, what we're doing, no way should Solskjaer be getting sacked or anything like that. We're actually, on paper, having a very good season. But I don't think anybody, myself, who says, let's see where we are at the end of the season, the staunchest Ole-inner would sit there and lie to you and say the football's fantastic. It's not. We all know the football's not good. So how can we sit here and say the football's not that good, we don't have a defined attacking, play easy on the eye style of football, and McFred are crap? How can we say all those three things and then say Donny van der Beek's not good enough for the Premier League? It's total hypocrisy, and this is where it falls down. To put leaks out that Donny van der Beek's not good enough for the Premier League, but then pick McFred and play the way that we do, is totally contradictory, isn't it? I mean, I'm all for both sides of the story and other sides of the story. I think there is always two, three, four sides to a story, and I'm not going to sit here and say it's a disgrace that Donny's not being picked. He's the best player in the team, but I'm not going to sit here and go, well, yeah, he's just not good enough, because it flies in the face of evidence, really. Look, I know that the Dutch league is very different to the Premier League, but the Champions League is the Champions League. We're not in the Champions League anymore. We play in the Europa League. We've played against Ajax. Ajax have played in Champions League semi-finals with Donny van der Beek. He's played international football. He's not Palestri from Uruguay, who's never touched European football before. Donny van der Beek has played at very high levels in Europe. I don't think he's going to come in the Premier League and go, I mean, I do think the Premier League's the best league in the world, but I don't think he's going to come in and go, oh my God, this is on a totally different level to Champions League semi-finals. The reality is, I think the obvious thing with Donny van der Beek is that he's too good for our midfield. He's too good for our team. Now that sounds really weird because he can't get in the team. But if you spend any time watching Donny van der Beek, and I'm not getting into the argument with the Donny van der Beek ultras who say he's a number 10. I think he is a number 10. I think he can also play right midfield, and I think he's a box-to-box midfielder as well. I don't really think he can play CDM, although I do think he can play it in the pivot if he's got a proper CDM next to him, which we don't have. But the interesting thing with Donny van der Beek is if you've spent any time watching him, his pressing is elite. Probably up there with Bruno. He knows how to press because that's what Ajax do. His passing and movement is elite because that is what Ajax do. And his movement off the ball, on a personal level, his ability is his movement he's making off the ball is elite. Now you drop a player into Manchester United's midfield whose movement off the ball is good. Well, that's a waste of time because we can't pass from the midfield. He wants to pass and move. Well, that's a waste of time because you've got to get the ball first. And when you do pass and move, we haven't got people who really know how to pass and move, apart from people like Pogba and Bruno, who he won't pick you all on the same team anyway. And as for pressing and intensity, well, yeah, we don't do that very well either. So we've bought a player that doesn't fit our style of play. And anybody who says that he does, well, he doesn't. Because, again, there's hypocrisy there. We've spent weeks and months talking about how our midfield pivot is dead. It sits there in front of the back four, babysitting it. It takes the ball off the back four. It barely ever plays a forward pass. It's negative. And people like Bruno and Greenwood and Rashford and Martial and Cavani, they starve from the lack of ball that they get. Well, then you've got Donny van der Beek, who sort of fits in between those. He's the link to Bruno from the CDM. But we haven't got the CDM who's got the intelligence to give Donny the ball and play the way that Donny wants to play. So I think that the big issue with Donny van der Beek, in a sentence, is he's too good, football intelligence-wise, for our team. And anybody who says you're wrong on that, Mark, well, hold on a minute. Have we not been speaking about this for weeks and weeks and weeks? That we are not a very good football team from back to Bruno. From Bruno ahead, we've got a good team. But getting the ball there, we're terrible at it. And I think Donny van der Beek is on a different football level because of his education. You know, Ajax is one of the best footballing educations you can get. He is too good for our team. So you'd question why we even bought him. Because if you stuck Donny van der Beek into Liverpool or Man City's side, you'd see what Donny van der Beek is all about. He doesn't suit our style of play at all. And I don't know how that's going to change because we want a centre-back. We want a striker. We don't want the CDM that's going to link Van der Beek to Bruno. And you know, I think that's the biggest issue. So I don't think it's got anything to do with him not being good enough. I think this is what they'll put out there to put the plaster over their opened wound that they screwed up. I think Donny van der Beek is a fantastic player. I was very, very excited about this signing. Real Madrid wanted him. He's a fantastic player who doesn't suit our football club. And it goes back to what we're talking about all the time. You talk about this midfield pivot of Matic and McTominay, or Fred and Matic, or Fred and McTominay, and it's a dead midfield. It's crap. It's two people doing one person's job badly. And it kills Van der Beek's career. It puts Pogba on the wing, and it stops Bruno getting the ball against good sides. So the evidence is there for me. It's very obvious why Donny van der Beek doesn't work. Paul Pogba's had 4 years in the Premier League. Like, he's Premier League proven because he's been here a long time. He now gets put on the wing rather than in the pivot where he won a bloody World Cup with Kante. So if Pogba's having to go to the wing, what chance has Donny van der Beek got on his debut season at Manchester United? He's been misused because we haven't got the players to utilise him, because behind him, you know, if you're Donny van der Beek playing next to Fred, God help you. God help you. Yeah, pass and move. What's that? Pass and hold on to it and then give it back to Maguire. Pass it forward to me 10 yards. I'm moving. Don't move. I can't hit a moving target. Don't move. So, no, I think it's very obvious why Van der Beek has not worked at Manchester United. And I think some fans think, oh, he's a flop, he's not played that well. Hold on a minute, he came on for half an hour against Newcastle back in October and changed the game for us. I remember him playing in the pivot at home to a couple of teams in November, played really well. Granted, his last game wasn't great. Watford in the Cup, he played well, but it's Watford in the Cup. McTominay played well in that. But I thought that Donny van der Beek, between the start of the season and Christmas, when he did get game time, I always thought he played very well. I think what's happened now is it's just gone on for way too long. His confidence is shot. And I think actually his last couple of games, he hasn't looked that good because we wasted him at the start. Mark, I remember you saying Donny playing style is mile ahead of Ollie's style of play, says Mikel. Well, we all feared it at the start, didn't we? We knew we were bringing in a very technical footballer. And as I said, if you drop Donny van der Beek into a Pep Guardiola side, you'll see what Donny van der Beek's all about. I'm not saying he'd start for Man City, but he'd suit Man City in the Gundogan role or the De Bruyne role, or even, in the Bernardo Silva role. I think he would work. I think Liverpool would love him. I just think we don't have a style of football that suits Donny van der Beek. And people will try and sit there and go, we're second in the league, he's just not good enough, Mark. He clearly isn't good enough. And I'd say, well, yeah, you're hypocrites. You are hypocrites because everybody is happy with where we are in the league, and everybody agrees that Solskjaer should get a manager. Really, should get a new contract. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people. But you can't say that our style of football is crap, and McFred and Matic are crap, and then say Donny's not good enough. It's a total. It doesn't make any sense. So we're saying that Matic, who should retire, Fred, who has to have a passport check every game, and McTominay, who isn't even a CDM, they're better than Donny van der Beek. Bullshit. I just think they play a system, and we remember when Ollie was going to get the sack ahead of the Everton game in the autumn, and the team he picked was like McTominay, Fred, Mata, I think Dan James might have started, and people are like, what the hell is he doing? Well, he goes to a certain team that plays a very logical way. It's like they will do the job I'm asking them to do. Like Ricky loves the fact that Dan James is playing at the moment because of the, and he'll show you all the clips on Twitter because he keeps his position. What did Dan James do in that game? He kept his position. He put a shift in. He didn't provide any ability on the ball. He didn't provide any creativity in the final third. He put a couple of crosses in he never should have put in because no one was in the box. But he did put a shift in and he did keep the shape. And I think United are leaning a little bit this season towards putting a shift in, grinding out the results, because that will keep Ollie in a job and get him a new contract. It's about grinding out the results. It's not about trying to find the United way and integrating a Donny van der Beek because I might concede a goal, being a little bit more open. So I think the future for Donny van der Beek, God knows what it is, because I haven't seen enough of him being used this season to suggest that, we're going to sell Pogba and then use Van der Beek. I think that's a ridiculous theory because if you were replacing Pogba with Van der Beek, you would have used Van der Beek more. I mean, he basically may as well have been in lockdown for the last year and come and join us in August because we've hardly used him. Mark, it will not be a huge indictment on the board will it not be a huge indictment on the board if Donny leaves after just one season? I don't think they really care, Tierno. I don't really care. They spent all last summer chasing Jadon Sancho. Everyone thought we were going to get him and they didn't get it. I mean, that is one of the biggest L's we've taken and they're still sat there making decisions. I don't really think there's no consequence for bad decisions at Manchester United, is there? So I wouldn't be surprised if Donny did leave. I don't want him to, but I fear that how is the style of football going to change to implement an intelligent footballer like that? Because I just don't see how he fits in the team that we have at the moment. Welcome to the Members Club, Ploik. And also, you say Ollie has a crap style of play, but you want to give him a contract. Never heard so much hypocrisy, says Abdullah. And guaranteed Donny has a fantastic Euros and makes Ollie look stupid, says Nightar7. Abdullah, your perception of hypocrisy is my perception of you're an idiot, because I've just explained exactly the situation at Manchester United over the last few weeks. My stance is very clear. You might not like it, but I sleep well. I drink Horlicks. It's very easy for me. Manchester United are second in the league. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has overachieved with the team that he had because it was a terrible summer transfer window. I predicted we would finish 5th with that squad. He's second, comfortably second. I'm not going to sack a manager for taking us to second place in the league with a squad that I didn't think could get top 4. That's not hypocrisy. That's basically, I think, where we are in the league is way better than I ever thought it was going to be. But as with many things, there are very many different shades to a colour, and I don't live in absolutes. I don't have to be firmly one or firmly the other. I think where we are at the moment is an achievement. Is it the achievement I want? No, it's not, but it's an achievement. We're still in 2 cups, and I say give Ole Gunnar Solskjaer till May. Very clear, very obvious, very explained. I'm not happy with the way we play football. I think the style of football is limited. My feeling is that he gets to May and he makes changes, because if he goes into next season with this team, I will become Ollie out. I've said that before. That's not hypocrisy. That's a very stated plan of, yes, where we are at the moment is progress. It is better than where I thought it was going to be. I'm not happy with the way we're playing. I'm not really happy with some of the team selections, but I feel that there probably are mitigating circumstances that if he gets to the summer, we do the transfer activity we should do. Next season, we shouldn't be seeing this pivot of McFred. We shouldn't be seeing Magaluf. If we are seeing them next year and he thinks that genuinely is the way forward for Manchester United, then I'm sorry, I'm Ollie out. So that's not hypocrisy. That's not sitting on the fence. That's a very defined stance of where I am, and everyone will have their own. Ollie should get a new contract, because if we finish second, that's progress, and it's more than I ever thought we were going to do this season. But in the summer is the real test, because I'm only giving him till May personally. You can give him what you want. My opinion doesn't really matter any more than anybody else's, and I'm sure it doesn't matter to Manchester United Football Club, but I will give Ollie till May, because I think he deserves a contract if he gets us into Champions League and finishes second and maybe wins a trophy. But if he goes into next season with Magaluf and he goes into next season with McFred in midfield, then I'm sorry, I'm going to be Ollie out, because that would be not mitigating circumstances. That would be he thinks that's what Manchester United should do, and no way in a million years are those players good enough to take us where we need to be. So you say I live in Amsterdam and watched him more than most. Ajax style is great but needs a system. Frankie de Jong works at Barcelona. You won't see Donny hitting a long ball or playing expansive football, says Manchild. And Mark, only assist deals in absolutes. I hope people get this, says Owen. Yes, you're right. And we can buy lots of good players, but if Ollie dare not try new things and keep playing in his comfort zone, we will always be where we are now, says Minnie. Well, I want to move on because there are some other things to talk about, but you make a good point there, Minnie. And I've said this before, and I think we've had this discussion before, but in a nutshell, what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer does throughout his Manchester United career is he came in for that first 3 months as an interim with nothing to lose, and he was just like, go out there, enjoy yourself, we're going to play this way. We're going to play with one holding midfielder, one box-to-box midfielder, and Pogba's going to be more advanced with a front three that interchanges. And we couldn't stop winning. It was absolutely fantastic. Then we got a few injuries. Then he got the job and he tried to just get over the line, and he didn't. We fell off a cliff. And then in the next season, which was last season, it was very up and down. I actually said in last January, just over a year ago, after the Burnley game, I was like, this is not the manager for Manchester United. He's out of his depth. And then Bruno came in, and Bruno was always the player that I wanted. Everything looked really, really good. But if you look at Solskjaer, when the going gets tough, he reverts to keeping it safe. He reverts to what I call protecting yourself. It's like percentage football. If I keep it tight at the back, we've got players who can produce a moment of individual brilliance, or we just counter-attack. We'll nick games by a goal. We'll get a draw. We won't get beaten. And if you look at United's results, pretty much since his job was under threat in autumn, how many games have we actually won by one goal? How many games have we won by a late winner? How many games have we won by the opposition being one goal behind us and we get a late block in, or it deflects wide of the post? We've been playing percentage football for a lot of this season. And that's what Ollie does. He protects himself by percentage football. He's like, keep it tight, try and, be clinical when you get the chances. It's almost like he's just thrashing. He's like a car in fourth gear. He's just got his foot down in fourth. There is a fifth and sixth gear. I just don't know whether he'll ever go into it. I hope he will. Mark, what about Anguissa from Fulham as a CDM option? He's quality, and if Fulham go down, he would get him for cheap, says Trigger. Can't understand why Ollie doesn't play Donny van der Beek, because it could be because he doesn't have a good CDM or defence, says Sinner. And be interesting to see if Ollie gets asked about Donny in the press conference and what his response to that would be. Can't see Donny going if Pogba goes too, says Salah Ahmed. And Mark, are you concerned that we're linked to selling De Gea, Martial, Pogba and Van der Beek? Others who need to leave first, Jones, Matic, Mata. Well, we won't sell all of those players, Ramlish, so I'm not concerned. Style of play can be seen with lesser players, Leeds, Brighton, so if Ollie gets better players doesn't mean much in regard to style of play. Hashim, you make a good point. And hi Mark, can you wish Sahal a happy birthday? He watches your show every day and loves it. Also, can you call him a prat? Keep up the good work, says Raheem. Happy birthday to Sahal. Hope you have a good day. I mean, interestingly as well, I've picked up on this as well. I think that there is an issue with Donny van der Beek, and obviously publicly the club will never say it through Ollie or any other way, but notice when he talks about injuries, it's always Pogba, Cavani, Martial. Donny's an afterthought. He never really gets mentioned. He's not considered a first-team player. We're not going to see Donny van der Beek against AC Milan. We're not going to see him against Leicester. Even if he's more fit than some players, they won't use him. He's not considered. I said it at Christmas. Welcome to the Members Club, Sharwin. I said it at Christmas. He's fifth choice midfielder. He's definitely behind Bruno. He's behind Pogba. He's behind McTominay. He's behind Fred, and he's probably behind Matic. Our biggest signing in the summer is not. He's just not. He's not wanted, and they don't know how to use him. That's my opinion. He's not wanted, and they don't know how to use him. I want him. I think he's a very, very good footballer. Van der Beek has been mentioned on this channel for a few years now, so I was very excited when we bought him. I just think he's been totally misused. But look, he won't be the first and he won't be the last. There's plenty of names that we were excited about that just didn't get used properly. Kagawa, Veron, there's plenty over the years. And you could, you can flip it and say they just weren't good enough, Mark. They didn't settle into the Premier League. They probably got more chances to settle in the Premier League than Donny van der Beek. But he will go off and be a very good player elsewhere. And maybe that's the best move for him. You can't argue with that. It might be the best move for him. Anyway, let's talk about Nikola MILENKOVIC, Fiorentina centre-back, 1 year left on his contract. Italian reports are talking about Manchester United have got a clear advantage to sign him now. Look, the thing about Milenkovic is I look at centre-backs now and I just think... Rob says, do you think Luke Shaw can be transformed into a CDM? I think it's hilarious how many of you are desperate for us to get a CDM that you actually think that we are, bloody Wimbledon or something, that we've got to turn players into CDMs. We're Manchester United. Our revenues are huge. We shouldn't be needing to convert people into centre defensive midfielders. We should be going out and buying centre defensive midfielders. That's what we should do. The reality is that we're not linked to any at the moment, which is scary, isn't it? It's very scary that we're not even looking at CDMs when, to me, it's the priority position. I watch Manchester United every minute of every game they play, and I'm sure most of you do as well. And to me, that centre defensive midfield situation is the priority. And people will say, well, what do you know? Well, what do we know? What do we know? Oh, we've been talking about the centre-back pairing for 8 months, and the mainstream media didn't pick up on it until January. We've been talking about the lack of movement of the ball from the midfield pivot to the attack, which deoxygenizes them and starves them. And now they're starting to talk about it in the mainstream media. That at some point they'll start realising that the number 9 shirt is a graveyard shift for Manchester United, which we all know it is. So I think if you watch Manchester United, you can pick up on a lot of the problems. And yeah, we do need a centre defensive midfielder. We do need a centre back as well. Milenkovic from Fiorentina, he's a good player. He's a good player. Is he the sort of player that people want? Probably not. He's going to be available for about £30 million, which will open Manchester United's eyes and prick their ears up, because he's cheap at £30 million, because he's only got a year left on his contract. In a normal market, he'd probably be 45 million, but because he's got a year left on his contract, he's going to be a bit cheaper. Just my thoughts, says Sakin, could be totally wrong. Is Ollie just pissed with the board for signing someone he didn't want, and he's showing that on Donny? Thoughts? But I don't think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer acts like a man who's pissed off with the United board. I don't think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is the sort of guy who carries those sort of grudges. I mean, he spends a lot of time telling people how he will not be that reactionary manager that's passionate on the touchline. He doesn't like that. People hate the fact that he sits there looking at a laptop and doesn't react to bad decisions. But he openly says he doesn't do that. He's a glass half full person. He's a calm person. If people compare him to Sir Alex Ferguson, you couldn't get anybody further from Sir Alex Ferguson. Sir Alex Ferguson was a madness on the touchline and in press conferences afterwards. He wore his heart on his sleeve. He was passionate. He was aggressive. He was a winner. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer doesn't do that. He's not that person. And when he talks about these people who are passionate and says they should wait a minute to calm down, he's talking about Mourinho, he's talking about Pep, he's talking about whoever. But actually he's also talking about his biggest mentor, because Sir Alex Ferguson was very passionate as well. So Ole Gunnar Solskjaer doesn't live his life like that. So I don't think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer holds resentment or is angry with the board in that sense. If Donny leaves, it shows how bad the board is. Sanchez, Di Maria, Depay, Donny and many more this board have signed and not worked out after a season, says Dazu. Oh, well, we know that. And yet some people are getting their hopes up about the summer transfer window to come. The same people who are in charge of our last 8 years of transfers are still there, and people expect a good summer. But Milenkovic, I don't want us to sign Milenkovic, and I don't think we're in for Milenkovic. There's a lot of excitement about it at the moment. It's the popular centre-back to be looking at. It seems to change every day. I don't think we'll go for him. I do think this is about his agent trying to generate interest in him and Manchester United's name being used. He doesn't fit the profile of the centre-back Manchester United should be looking at. I think he's very similar to Harry Maguire. He's not an identikit Harry Maguire, but very similar. Tall, good on the ball, obviously good in the air, quite physical, but I don't think Maguire and what you've got to look at is Maguire's our captain, Maguire's our centre-back next year. If you buy Milenkovic, I think they make an odd couple. I don't think they complement each other very well. I think we'd be absolutely great under the high ball if we learn how to actually mark people from corners, but I don't think they complement each other. I think Pau Torres and Maguire would complement each other better. And people will say, well, but Pau Torres is nearly the same height as Milenkovic, but Pau Torres is better on the ball. Obviously, he's left-footed, so you'd get some synergy there. I think Pau Torres is quicker. Milenkovic he's not slow, but you wouldn't say pace is an asset for him. So I don't see Milenkovic being the player that Manchester United need. And as we know, as much as it pains me to say this, because pace should not be. It's almost like playing FIFA bloody 99. Pace. But the pace attribute in the centre-back that we need is actually very important because we play so deep. And when we play Eric Bailly, we see that ability to push up 10 metres. A centre-back who is quick next to Maguire is actually just complementing the attributes you need in the partnership. The reason this centre-back that we buy must be quick is because Maguire is not quick. So with Maguire, you get aerial ability, decent on the ball. And then with the other centre-back, you're going to get, hopefully, pace to complement that, and other attributes as well. But yeah, we do need somebody who's quick. My fear is with Pau Torres or Milenkovic, we would still play McFred and Magaluf as the new signing isn't ready to start. Need progression, not regression. Salah, you've just hit the nail on the head there. I was just going to say that before we move on. In relation to Milenkovic, and you're right, I've said it about Pau Torres, what worries me about a 30 to 40 million pound signing is that they won't get picked. We've just spent a few minutes talking about Donny van der Beek, who we bought in for 35 million and has hardly played any football. Donny van der Beek, this will make you cry, I've said it before, Donny van der Beek has played less minutes than Virgil van Dijk in the Premier League. And Virgil van Dijk has been out for the season, basically. So I will not be comfortable with signing Milenkovic or Pau Torres, because I think next season will start and it will be the same old... Yeah, they're settling in well. Yeah, they're part of the team. They've got a great future. And we start off with Maguire and Lindelof again. This is why, if we're buying a centre-back, I really want it to be a Varane or somebody really, who's better than Maguire and, clearly better than Maguire, because they're clearly going to get picked. And that's the only way we're going to progress. We can't afford to bring a centre-back in who's settling in well, going to be one for the future, and then we start the season with Maguire and Lindelof and that deep line again. And look, Maguire and Lindelof have done all right recently, but they're never, ever going to be able to play a high line because they're too slow. So it doesn't matter whether they've done well. It doesn't matter how many clean sheets they've got. We know the way we play is restrictive on the attackers because of how we play to protect Maguire and Lindelof. They've always got McFred really close to them. They never get left on their own. Unless we're on a really high attack, they don't get left on their own. Most of the time we're not attacking. Most of the time McFred has stood right in front of them quite deep. Mark, would love it if we signed Ben Godfrey. I feel Ollie wanted Godfrey before Maguire, says Ehab. Well, obviously, he's at Everton now, so that's not going to happen. Just a quick one about Ousmane Dembele. Barcelona trying to get him onto a new contract. He is another player with 1 year left on his contract. I think there's a lot of... I mean, the reason I mention Ousmane Dembele is there are a lot of factors to this summer transfer window that will obviously play out, but we don't know how they're going to play out. But there are players like Rafael Varane, 1 year left on his contract. Milenkovic, 1 year left on his contract. Ousmane Dembele, 1 year left on his contract. Pogba, Lingard are in the same situation. I think even Kylian Mbappe is in the same situation, but we're not signing him. So Ousmane Dembele is interesting because Manchester United, as we know, definitely were trying to get him over the line, desperate at the end of the transfer window where they screwed up the Sancho deal. We were really trying to get him in on loan. The feeling is that Ousmane Dembele didn't want to come to Manchester United, but it doesn't mean that we wouldn't go back in there if he decided not to sign a new contract at Barcelona. So I throw Ousmane Dembele in there basically because I just want to keep it in everybody's mind that it wouldn't be out of the question for Manchester United to go in and try and get Ousmane Dembele for 40 million quid with 1 year left on his contract, considering that he was the Sancho alternative a few months ago. Would I take Ousmane Dembele at Manchester United? On talent and age, I think he would be a very good signing. My concern is that are we not just buying Phil Jones on the wing? Because his injury record is abysmal, really. But there you go. I call it the square. Maguire, Lindelof and McFred. These are 4 positions we should be signing. Forget anything else, as Ben Anderson. Well, when you look at that square, only one of them can stay. If Maguire, Lindelof, McFred and McTominay, and they're our spine as well, they are the spine of the team, and 3 of those positions aren't good enough. Now, choose your centre-back. I'm personally going to go with Maguire. We need a new centre-back and we need a new pivot. McFred can go on the bench. I like them both, but we've got 4 players in our first team at the moment, and if we want to progress, 3 of those 4 positions have got to go. 3 of the square have got to go. I'd keep Maguire, I'd bring a centre-back in, I'd hope to keep Pogba and get a CDM in. That's what I hope happens. But if Pogba goes... yeah. Some people would go with Lindelof. Sally Devil Red says, and Dembélé, no thanks. Like Alex Telles, what was the point? Well, David Page makes a very good point. I mean, Alex Telles doesn't actually get the publicity Donny van der Beek gets because Luke Shaw's been fantastic. But there are things we could have done with Alex Telles. He could play left wing. But again, it's an oddity, isn't it? I mean, have any of our signings from last summer actually worked? I've always said that last summer was a crap transfer window because Ollie didn't get what he wanted. He didn't get Sancho. He didn't get a centre-back. But even the players that he did get, Ahmad looks like a good signing. Arguably, he should be getting more game time. I don't know why we didn't use him at the weekend because he's not trusted. If you're not trusted, when do you become trusted? Donny van der Beek we've spoken about. Telles can't get any game time. Cavani, to be honest with you, is turning into a bit of a bloody nightmare because of his injuries, which we all knew he had. And Palestri's on loan in Spain, isn't he? So, yeah, it's not worked well last summer, really. But as I said, I didn't predict we would be in the top 4 and look at where we are. Although that Liverpool result last night was a little bit dangerous. Could have done with Wolves getting the point I felt that they probably could have deserved if they actually had anybody up front who could put the ball in the back of the net. So Liverpool are ominous. I think they've got 9 games to go, Liverpool, and they've got probably... I could see them winning 7 of those games, which would put them around 70 points. Which we should get to 70 points, but we have got to play Liverpool as well. We can get Mbappe, Haaland and Sancho and still won't do better as a team because the ball is never going to reach them with McFred in our midfield to sack in. 100%. You're right on that one. Also, just a shout out to Hannibal, young player, and he has been training with part of the first team, but has been injured for the last few weeks. Signed his new contract. You probably saw the pictures across social media last night. So, like Shoretire, he's training with the first team now and signed a new long-term contract. This is the player to keep your eyes on, Hannibal Mabry. He's very good. He's very good, especially in the youth setup. Where he's going to play, probably another 10. Can play off the wing as well. Not ready yet, but he is a player to keep an eye out, and fingers crossed he will be another player that's going to end up hitting the first team. But we've got a lot of players like that. Manchester United's problem at the moment is we've got loads and loads of attackers. There's some really really talented young players coming through. We all know about Charlie McNeil and Hugel as strikers, goal scorers. Obviously, we know about Ahmed, who is not a youth player. We spent money on him, by the way. But you've got Hannibal, you've got Shoretire, you've got others in and around that youth setup as well who can come through. There's not really anything that's coming through as sort of the CDM position, which is where we're at. I mean, we've already got good attackers now, but we just need somebody there. Mike says, check out Phil Brown's latest podcast. He gets stuck into the Glazers for cashing in 100 million in shares from the club. You know what, Mike? I think with the Glazers, it's a tiresome subject, because until somebody offers an alternative, we just moan about people that we already know who they are. You know, it's like living next to neighbours who let their dog out every night when you're in bed and it shits all over your garden, and you get up in the morning and it's shit again. You can keep knocking on the door and asking them to do it, but they're still letting the dog out. And until they move away, you're going to have dog shit on your garden every morning. And look, what do people want people to say? The Glazers are taking money out of Manchester United. They did it from day one. They did it from day one, and they've done it for 15 years. This is not breaking news. It's frustrating. I agree with Phil. I agree with any Man United fan who's frustrated by the Glazers, but they're not secretive about it. They've taken 100 million in dividends as well over the last few years. No other club has taken any from the top six dividends. I think Liverpool took a little tiny bit. They take money from our football club. That's what they do, and they're not discreet about it. And it is very frustrating, but there is nothing we can do about it. Marchers, leaving the ground, green and gold scarves, they're not going to work. They're not going to work. The only thing that's going to work is a viable alternative to remove them from our football club. And I think the only viable alternative is somebody who's rich enough, who cares enough to buy this football club and force them out, that we as a fans can get behind. Now, that was tried a few years ago and it didn't work, but that's the way to get them out. But it's going to have to be somebody really, really rich. And you do it like you oost a government, like you oost something that's not working. You know, we're not going to do it by, just shouting and screaming on social media. But I don't think we're going to do it anyway, because there's nobody out there. There's nobody out there looking to buy Manchester United, and unfortunately we're stuck with the Glazers, and they will keep taking money out of this football big club. The thing I'd say, I get very frustrated by it, but I think when it comes to the Glazers, for me, the karma I have, or the calm I have, because otherwise you're just going to destroy yourself with blood pressure and everything, is that they are who they are. They're not pretending to be anything else. I'm not frustrated by them as individuals, because I see exactly what they are. They're not Manchester United fans. They never were. They're businessmen. They bought our club and put us into debt and made millions and millions and millions of pounds. They are business people. They don't support this club. I think where people get frustrated is they sort of think they do support the club, so why are they doing this? They don't. They don't support the club. I don't think Ed Woodward's a Manchester United fan. He will be now, but I don't think he was. I think if you look into his history, he probably doesn't even like football. And same probably with Matt Judge. I mean, I've got no evidence to say that they aren't Man United fans, but I probably guarantee that they weren't. We're just run by business people, and we're like puppets on a string, really. It's sad, but it's true. Sahil says, Ollie is too scared to not use McFred and put Donny in the pivot. I think, let's take it up a level. I think Ollie's too scared to put Pogba in the pivot and plays McFred. I mean, I agree about the Donny van der Beek thing, but Paul Pogba is playing on the wing and McFred are playing at centre defence midfield. Paul Pogba's won a World Cup from CDM. You're putting Paul Pogba on the wing because you don't dare remove McFred, who are, to be honest with you, I can name 16 better midfield pivots in the Premier League, and there's only 20 clubs. I think McFred would not even get picks for Southampton. I think Ward-Prowse and Romu are a better pivot than them. So they're just a bang average midfield pivots. They're Duracell bunnies. They run around and they've got the passion. But McTominay's not even a CDM. To be fair to the lad, he's not even a CDM. He's a box-to-box player, and we don't play with a box-to-box player. And Fred's not a CDM either. I mean, Fred's a traditional box-to-box player. without, that's what it is. But look, we'll see what happens with Donny. I can't make any predictions on it. I've got no idea what's happening with him. I've had no idea what we're doing with him for the last few months, and maybe that's reflected within the training as well. They don't know how to utilise a player like that because his level of football intelligence is different, on a different level to the players that we know aren't good enough. So how can you get the best out of Donny van der Beek when no one knows how to play with him? Simple as that, isn't it? And the worst thing is, the one player who actually does know how to play with Donny van der Beek is the player that he takes off to play Donny van der Beek. Like, when Donny does start games, he doesn't start Bruno. It's a total hypocrisy, because who's the one player in the United team that can play pass and move football, that can press? If you've got Donny and Bruno in the same team, your press is much better because they both are two players in our squad that know how to press as a team. They're also two players that know how to pass and move. And it's, but so much of the time, Bruno's not on the pitch when Donny's on the pitch. And then Donny gets starved because it's like, well, there's no one on my level. I think the best players you could put around Donny van der Beek are people like Juan Mata, Mason Greenwood, Bruno Fernandes, Paul Pogba, because they're all intelligent footballers. But he ends up on the pitch with McFred and Dan James and people like that. And you're never going to get that level of football because those players just don't play that way. Anyway, we'll go on and on and on and on. Please smash a like on the video. Back again at 2 o'clock. We've got our AC Milan preview. Looking forward to that big game. Have a very good day. Stay safe. Smash a like on the video. Subscribe. And I'll speak to you all in a bit. Lots to talk about.